Hello. I'm back after my forced rest for 5 days. I couldn't make it this morning. I had to catch up on so much. Running to the post office mainly to post off books, it still is incredible, and I'm so humbled and grateful for everybody's interest and comments and reviews and requests. The little girl in me, the dyslexic, neurospicy, word phobic little girl inside is happy dancing a lot. Anyhow, welcome to Field Notes Friday. Actually on a Friday, yay. If you are watching this and you're new here, this is a space where I share what I have been noticing with the horses, with myself, sometimes with the environment, and is usually a coming together of the things that I have been reflecting on during the week. This is 2 weeks though, because obviously I missed last week with not being very well. And we were talking about vulnerability. I like to think of these more as journal entries that I say out loud. And I would really like it if you would reflect with me. Either if you're watching this live, if you're going to join me live, then please add any comments you want. Or if you're watching it on replay, again, it's an invitation to listen to your inner self, to see what's coming up for you, and particularly about this subject on vulnerability, which can be difficult, but it is important. So yeah. So I asked a question, which was, does our masking of vulnerability affect the behavior of our horses? Something like that. I think about this subject quite often, mainly because when I'm coaching, the human within the dynamic can feel quite overwhelmed and vulnerable about what is coming up for them. Because as you know, if you followed me for long enough, my mentoring is less about how to side pass, let's say, and more about how our horses are feeling and how we are feeling and how we can still get to that end position, still achieve what we would like to achieve as human beings, but with the horse as opposed to in conflict with them, so that they are coming along with us, collaborating and not just complying. So when we get to talk about subjects and when I get asked questions, particularly when it's a technical question, which I have no problem discussing, in fact I love it, because the want in the human being is often technical. It's often, I want my horse to do how do I get my horse to do whatever? And the answer that they are expecting, or their habitual learning has dictated that they want to hear, is one of, well, do A, then B, then C, and you get Z. And life isn't like that. Learning is not like that. And our horses are not like that. So when we start following methods and techniques that are based on the ABC and have no flexibility, for individuality, we get into trouble. And that's when, like I say, some students of mine feel quite vulnerable, because all of a sudden their norm, their how do you say, their security, their safety blanket in learning around horses feels like it's moving. It's not quite on the steady ground that it once was. Not that that ground was very steady in the first place, because of the fact that we are not flexible enough in our thinking and in our ability to understand learning of our horses and how our horses learn. But I digress a little bit, I think. What I would like to do today is talk about how we can bring vulnerability and the pause together, and explore what happens when we stop treating a pause as a weakness, even when it's forced on us for whatever reason. So like I say, this week I was forced to pause, and that was coming off a period of a lot of running, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And instead see it as part of the conversation, whether that is dialogue with ourselves, with other people, or with our horses. So vulnerability can be seen as communication. For our horses, vulnerability often shows up in a behavior that we don't particularly like, or certainly that we would rather not see. That could be anything from a hesitation to flight, and anywhere in between. If it's not what we are anticipating, what we would like to see, then it becomes part of that behavior that we don't want, whatever degree. And we, like I touched on earlier, and it's part of it, we are taught to see those responses, those responses as problems to fix. And that is a really vulnerable place to be, because fixing something that is not yours to fix, but yours to understand, can only lead you down a path of potential disappointment. So if we can think of these moments where we are having these behaviors from our horses that are not what we are looking for, more as moments where safety feels thin, where the horse is saying, either quietly or loudly, I need more time. That pause is communication. When we think to override it, to push through it, to correct it, to try and fix it, to move it, to sort of put all our energy leaning into it, to push it on, we are not making them braver. We are not showing them that we are stronger. We are teaching them to mask the response and to have less trust in our awareness of what they need in the moment. My own forced pause, like I say this week, I had no choice but to stop. I was in bed with the flu. There's not much you can do about that. It wasn't a pause I chose, but it was a pause I needed. And it really struck me how, in that moment, how uncomfortable I felt, how much I wanted to push through it, to keep producing, to keep the momentum going of the rhythm of my life in that moment, to keep up, to keep going, to answer that call, to answer that email. Particularly in a moment of my life which is incredibly exciting, I have to say. But the truth is, if I had not made space for that pause voluntarily, my body would have given me a bigger response than I was having already. And that is one of the dangers we have with our horses. If we don't give space for that pause, today it could have been just a moment, I need a little bit more time. Tomorrow it could be the flight end of the scale and them asking for days or weeks, or the risk of losing them. When I see this happening, I always say the same thing: don't lose them. Make sure that you're still connected no matter what is going on, no matter how long the pause is. If we push through it, as we push into that space, they choose to move away from it. So it doesn't matter how much we push, the distance remains the same. And that's when we end up losing that connection and losing our ability to draw them back in. So what we don't want to do is either shut them down or shut ourselves down, or explode, have them exploding in that fight, flight, or we fight or flight within ourselves. A pause is necessary for our nervous system, to regulate. And it is both how we as human beings and our horses reset in a moment, whether that be literally seconds or in a week, a day, however long it takes. We need that. They need that. So when we see pause as not as something negative, so it's not a delay, but more as wisdom, as in a wise choice in that moment, everything shifts. For our horses, the pause allows their nervous system to drop back below their threshold. And it's important to say their threshold because all thresholds are different. So if you do have the privilege of playing with more than one horse, the threshold of those horses will all be slightly different on the scale. As soon as they do that, curiosity can re-emerge, and that, as I say on multiple occasions, allows confidence to build, because curiosity builds confidence. And for us, when we allow that pause, it gives us clarity. It gives us clarity in the moment, in the dialogue that we might be having, or clarity in the bigger picture that we might need for how our lives are sitting at that moment. It gives us perspective, and allows us to be authentic and honest about where we actually are. And that can only be a good thing when we are in communication and in dialogue with our horses. I don't believe vulnerability should be about being fragile. For me, it's more about being real enough to admit that we do need to pause. And when we can share that with our horses, they begin to feel it. Because vulnerability isn't weakness to them either, it's information. The more honest and authentic we can be, the more that we can bring our true self in that moment to them, the more that they will give us space to be us, to be ourselves. So going back to the question, do our horses feel that vulnerability? Yes, they do. Can it affect the way the dialogue goes? It certainly can. These are my perspectives. These are my experiences. For it to be a positive or negative outcome is how we understand how much awareness we have of that moment of that vulnerability in that moment, how much trust we can give to the pause, how much space we can give to that moment. So maybe this week's takeaway would be, don't rush the pause, and don't mask your vulnerable bits. Allow them to be seen. And it is not easy. I absolutely know that. I have learned to be more vulnerable. I have lived quite a lot of my life with a mask for one reason or another. Not always the same mask either, strangely, but I think that's quite common, perhaps. So if your horse hesitates, if your horse is pausing and asking for a moment, let it be a doorway into information, into a gateway to a wiser decision instead of a roadblock. And again, for us, when your body demands rest, let it be information instead of failure, and take it. I would love to hear from you, as always. I'm always wanting to hear your take on these things. If you've noticed pausing and how that has shown up with you and your horses, and maybe how did pausing show up just for yourself? I know a couple of people have commented on my post earlier the other day about me not being very well, and saying, I need to take a break. Also, take it. If you don't take the half an hour now, then it will be a few days that you need, or even 5. So thank you for listening to my Friday ramblings. As always, I'm being curious. I would love it if you would also ask questions and give reflections. This is a space that I would really love you to share with me. That's it. That's the end of my live for today. Thank you for being patient with me. Sorry I missed you last week, and I will hopefully be back to normal scheduling in the coming week. So take care, and bye for now.